Hello, everyone. Welcome to Trailblazing Tribe. Uh, Thank you again for your time. Thank you for watching this. And we really put a lot of effort into delivering value to any of our listeners. So it's really, really important to us that you get something out of this. And we just want to reiterate as well is that if you have any questions, if you have any comments, if there's anything that you would like to have us speak about or more clarity on anything like that, we definitely want to engage you in commenting to us and reaching out to us, through the group, through the school chat platform, so that we can answer any questions. That way, there we can serve you to the highest level. That's our goal. So yeah, I today we're going to talk to you about something I love. I mean, I think I love everything about real estate. I mean, let's just be real. I've been an active and passive investor for the last 35 plus years, and starting in real estate back in 1988 when I was 21 years old. And um my my first story goes back to I acquired a property, and when I acquired that property, it didn't take me long to realize that I was going to be broke owning it, because I was going to live in it. I was going to make the mortgage payments. I was going to pay for the repairs and maintenance. I was going to pay for the taxes, the utilities. I was going to pay for everything. And I was starting to realize that most of my paycheck was going towards this house. So it didn't take me long to realize that I was going to be poor if I continued on this thing where I really thought that buying a house was where I wanted to be. And I really thought I was somebody that, when I bought a house. And one day I had a friend of mine over, and she had a son, and we were talking, and I'm, just telling her, we just got this new house, and, having her over for coffee. And she looks around the house. It was a little 2 bedroom, 1 bathroom house. And she looks at me and she looks around the house and she says, I would rent this house from you. And I said, really? I said, for how much? And it worked out to be like an extra almost $200 a month over what my expenses were. And I was like, we can do that. We can so do that. And so I became a landlord like that. It didn't take me long. How soon can you move in? Let's make this happen. And that's the power of what a passive investor is that you have money coming in that really you're not doing anything for. Now, yes, keep in mind that you will need a manager if you're not going to manage the property. Yes, you're still going to have to make sure that, in most cases, the mortgage payments are made. The insurance, you have proper tenant insurance on the property, letting them know that it's a rental property. You want to make sure that the financing, if you're not paying cash, you want to make sure that the lender knows that it's also going to be a rental property. It's very important that you tell everyone what you're doing. So when I rented out my property, I went from a homeowner insurance policy, to now a landlord. Now there's going to be a tenant living in that property. So it is a different insurance. Um, just to reiterate again, is I'm not a lawyer, I'm not an accountant, I'm not an insurance agent, I'm not a mortgage broker, I'm not licensed in anything at the moment. So please follow up with whichever professional that you need to confirm anything that I'm saying about. This is just my experience that I'm talking about. Um, so on a passive note, that's the joy, I guess, of now I've used other people's money, because now what I've done is I leveraged the bank's money. And then what I've done is I've leveraged someone else's money, namely the tenant. And now what's happening is every month when that tenant pays me, now my mortgage is being paid down. Now that property, in most cases, is the values going up every single year. So I've got cash flow. I've got a property appreciation. So now the value is going up. I've got forced appreciation because now that she was living there, and now that I was having some cash flow extra coming in every month over my own work paycheck, now I was able to take that money and do improvements to the property. So now when it came time to want to sell that asset, it was going to be worth more than what I paid for it. So there's those three components of remembering that these are three of the ways that you make money passively, where you have nothing to do with it. Where yes, forced appreciation, you go in, you get someone else to do the work, you pay for that, the value goes up. You didn't do anything besides a little bit of renovation, a little bit of cost out of pocket to be able to bring that value up on that asset. So this is literally money. Warren Buffett says it all the time, is if you don't find a way to make money when you're sleeping, you're going to have to work till you die. So I have found that passive investing is one of the best ways. I choose the vehicle of real estate all day, every day. And when you're taking that and I'm giving an example of my first one was a single family home. I had then built a portfolio into where I had a 12 unit apartment building with some partners. So now what that became is that I had 12 people that were paying down that mortgage every month. I had 12 people that were now forcing the appreciation because I would have to do little renovations here and there, especially with the cash flow. So we had cash flow, we had the forced appreciation again. The passive appreciation on a real estate asset is astronomical, considering that depending on your marketplace, I like to use the 3% number. Some markets are a lot higher. COVID was crazy. That's the truth. COVID blew numbers out of the water. There was nothing that we could compare it to. There was nothing that came from a recession into all of a sudden values coming up. Nothing. We've never seen anything like this, not in my lifetime anyway. And so when we consider the normal appreciation on something like that, if you're looking at 3%, again, 3% is without you getting out of bed. That's just because you've positioned yourself with an asset and not a liability. And the part that I want to touch on with liability is that even in the Rich Dad Poor Dad, a lot of us have read Robert Kiyosaki. And even in Rich Dad Poor Dad is that if you own a house and you live in it, it's a liability. And a lot of people think, oh, but I own my own home. I'm mortgage free. And that's the worst thing, again, in my opinion, that you can have is a house that's completely paid for. Because now you have a liability that still you have to pay property tax out of your pocket. Insurance is out of your pocket. Any repairs and maintenance are out of your pocket. And now, because you're not leveraging that asset, it's costing you money. Now, a lot of passive partners, what they do is they get a thing called a HELOC, which is a home equity line of credit. And they go to a mortgage agent or a bank. You can go to either or, and you go to them. And what you want to do is you want to leverage your asset. You want now, because it can be an asset at this point. So you want to leverage the house that you're living in and go to them and say, okay, my property is worth $500,000. And in a lot of cases, they'll give you up to 60% or more on that property. So now you're unlocking 60% of 500,000 is $300,000. So now what they're going to do is they're going to give you a line of credit of $300,000. And because that line of credit is secured against an asset, that interest rate is lower than if it was an unsecured line of credit or a credit card. So now this is the important part. The $300,000 line of credit that they're giving you does not cost you anything until you use it. So you can take that $300,000 and you could go and buy another property with that. You could use it as a down payment on a 12 unit building. You could use it to purchase in cash a duplex, 2 units or 4 units or 6 units. It all depends on the marketplace that you're choosing. So keeping in mind that now what you've done is that $300,000, yes, there's going to be a payment to it. However, your tenants are going to be making that payment because there's going to be cash flow to pay that off. And that interest on your line of credit is now a tax deduction because you've used it for real estate and you've used it for business purposes. Again, confirm that with your accountant. This has just been my experience. So keeping that in mind is now by you going and using your home that you live in, leveraging that to its full capacity, going to get another asset. Now, keeping in mind that other asset is also going to be having forced appreciation because you might go in and do some work to it. You're also going to have the mortgage paid down on it. So now every month that those tenants are paying, it's coming down. So these are the ways that you make passive money. Now, there's other ways to do things. Again, real estate is my vehicle, is that one of the things that I really like to do is I like to get into partnerships. And I understand the concept of passive investing. I understand the concept of, you can make money when you sleep, and yes, you can acquire that asset. And what I found for me is when I was single-handedly between managing and owning almost 300 units at one time. So knowing what I know now and trying to single-handedly do that, or having people that I was working for as their property manager, I had realized that it was a lot of work, but also that there wasn't, I was doing all the work and I was getting some benefits, but I wasn't really getting all the benefits that I could have. So let me explain that. Is when I was a property manager, I got paid to manage that asset. And I can tell you that when the owners would pay me, I know that they didn't take any calls all month. I know that they didn't flush any toilets or get any, go unclog any toilets. I know that they weren't dealing with tenant complaints. They weren't collecting the rents. They weren't doing anything. I was collecting the rents. I was taking on whatever was going on in that whole month. I was sending that to the landlord, and then AKA passive investor. And they were giving me a small percentage because I was managing that asset for them. And I started thinking to myself, going, if they can afford to pay me that clearly, and they're doing well, then that tells me that they factored in my numbers. They factored in what it's going to cost to actually have a property manager. So what I thought about was, what would it be like if now I'm doing the same work, but now I have but now I'm partnering with that person. So now I'm taking that passive person and I'm saying, let's partner versus me being the manager. So the part of being a passive investor is that we'll say you don't have the experience. You don't want the experience. You love your job. You love your career. You're a business owner now and you're already busy. You just know that real estate is a vehicle. So by being that passive partner and knowing what you know and knowing that the advantages that you have, by getting into a partnership with the right active partner, now what you've done is that you've mitigated and minimized your risk as well, because that person that you're partnering with, provided that you've screened them properly, that they're going to be responsible for all of that. And if there's a loss at the end of the month, that's going to be on them as well. If there's a problem, they're going to take care of it, not you. So when you really start to look at the value of a partnership between an active and a passive partner, you can see how it can be a really beautiful thing, right? So when we're looking at a passive partner, so another thing that I feel is very, very important to touch on is that, yes, active partners will go out there and they will acquire the asset or they will hunt for the asset. and they will come to you and say, this is a good deal. This is the numbers. This is the money that I need. This is great. Now, a passive partner's role most of the time is provide the capital needed for the acquisition, as well as the repairs, the maintenance, renovations, anything that's needed to bring that asset up to its highest and best use. Now, that being said, is that I really try to relay and really impress upon a passive investor is that yes, it's passive because you're putting your capital in. And yes, that's your active partner because they're actively managing that asset on your behalf or on both of your behalves. The thing that I really want to stress on a passive investor is you need to do your due diligence. A lot of passive investors just say, here's a check. Here's a check. Here's my money. Send me my money at the end of the month, the end of 6 months, every quarter, at the end of a year, whatever that is. I don't want to know anything. And I very, very highly recommend that you don't just do that. I recommend that you stay in the know. I recommend that you want to know about that asset. I recommend that if you're going to invest remotely, which a lot of my passive partners do, and they never see the asset, what I do as an active partner is I send them a copy of the inspection report. I send them a copy of the appraisal report. I send them the quotes. Now, as a passive investor, I invite you to look over those documents. You want to know what's going on. You want to understand, because at the end of the day, if someone says to you or your active partner says to you, something went wrong and now we need $100,000 more over budget. Something went wrong and we're not refinancing that property in 12 months as anticipated. We're now going to have to refinance this asset in 36 months because of whatever circumstance. And if you're a passive partner and you have no idea what's going on, that's going to sideswipe you. All of a sudden, what do you mean? You told me 12 months. I wasn't prepared for this. Whatever. The thing is play a part in it. Ask the questions. Okay, yes, I understand that the objective, the goal is to refinance this asset within 12 months. However, if something goes wrong, what's plan B? What's another exit strategy? The other thing as a passive investor is have that expectation, but also that flexibility that if you're investing your $300,000 from a home equity line of credit and you need that monthly payment every month, you need that money, that income from that asset to pay for that home equity line of credit, then you need to be upfront with that and make that known that, look, I'm going to need that $1,000 or $1,500, whatever that might be. I need that every month. So you need to be prepared also that what happens if the property, what happens if that asset does not produce that cash flow that month? And I'm telling you is you can have every exit strategy in the world. You can have all your I's dotted, T's crossed. You can do all your research. You can do all your market evaluations. You can do all these things. Things go wrong. There are visions for a reason. Yes, we go in, here's the days on market. Here's this, here's these numbers. And we do an extensive amount of research before we actually remove any conditions on acquiring an asset. However, there is those moments that asset, something goes wrong, or it can be interest rates. I mean, how many here have experienced interest rates going up and down? So I don't care if you're 24 or 56, you've experienced interest rates going up or down. It doesn't matter how old you are. So these things happen. That can affect the refinance on a property. So it might not be in your best interest in that moment if it's a 12-month plan, that now we reevaluate and look at the interest rates have just went up. Now is not the time to refinance that asset. Now it's going to cost us more money if we refinance. So we should wait another year. Let's wait it out. So you need to know when you're going into this that it's not like you're blindfolded. It's not. So many passive partners will, in the past would come to me because they had other partners. They didn't have me as an active partner, but they had other partners. They go, well, I was told 6 months. I was told 18 months. I was told this, and I'm not getting what I expected. And what really goes through me at that moment is, did you have the conversation? Did you have the conversation of, what if this doesn't happen? And as a passive partner, you've got to know on your side, if you need that money back in 12 months and the first plan exit strategy is 12 months from now, and then the other ones are longer, then don't, that asset, that a deal, that opportunity is not for you, because it's not going to meet what you want, right? And then you need to hear, like, it's, I know that I talk about active listening being an active partner, but there's an active listening that has to go on being a passive partner too. That if I'm presenting this opportunity to you and you're a passive partner and I'm an active partner, and I'm saying, here's the asset, here's your return, here's the projected of this is what we're going to do. You're going to make $1 million in 5 years. I need you to invest $300,000. You won't be getting any money back for 5 years. And you say to me, that's a great deal. I'm going to make $1 million, and you're fixated on the 5-year return that I talked about. And then all of a sudden you come to me after 12, 13 months and say, well, I need my money back. That wasn't what we talked about. So it's so important. I mean, active partners, active partnerships with passive partnerships, it's like a marriage. It really is. And there's a lot of communication that has to go on. There has to be, again, when you're doing that contract, when you're doing that operating agreement, when you're doing that shareholder agreement, that joint venture agreement with that active partner, is don't skimp, don't be skimpy, don't be cheap. Get your own lawyer to look over the documents. And I highly recommend, do not do one of these kind of deals. Do not do a handshake deal. Do not. And don't get me wrong, I've had handshake deals go very well. I have had handshake deals go very bad. I've had contracts go really good. I've had contracts go really bad. And I get that. However, is get the legal advice that you need so that you're in the know. You need to understand that entire property. Doesn't mean you have to go there. Doesn't mean you're going to have to deal with tenants. I'm not saying any of that. You just need to be informed. And a lot of people want to walk around, they've got blinders on. I'm a passive investor. I don't need to know. Yeah, you do. Because I'll tell you, when the stuff hits the fan, you're all of a sudden going to have a lot of questions. That's not the time for questions. That's not the time to go to your active partner and say, what just happened? Why is there no money going in my bank account? Why do we need a cash call? Why is there $100,000 needed? So that's the important part of it. Is I just can't stress that enough, is that passive is not 100% passive. You can't just, walk around blindfolded, right? The other thing is having, when you're going to go to a lawyer, an attorney, and an accountant, is making sure that they're real estate investor friendly. You want to ask them, are you experienced in doing taxes for passive investors? Because taxes are filed differently. There's structures. One of them or both of them will advise you in regards to getting into a corporation, or if you should buy that asset in a personal name. So again, that depends on the person, that depends on your portfolio now, that depends on your net worth. So you want to get that proper advice. A lot of people make this mistake, is that they say to me, you know what, I'm not going to go talk to a lawyer, or I'm not going to go talk to an accountant until I get my first property. And I'm sorry, but if you've already acquired your first property, you could be too late to get your advice. So I again recommend, make those appointments. I mean, these are all write-offs to you. And I know a lot of you have no idea what write-offs are. A lot of you are new to real estate. Maybe you've got a few $100,000, maybe you got $50,000 to invest, and you have no idea any part of this. However, it's, take that money, take a bit of it, get that advice that you need. A lot of lawyers will give you 30 minutes for free. A lot of accountants will give you, in most cases, 30 minutes for free. And asking, how do I set up myself when I go to acquire this asset? How do I have to set myself up? That's going to be critical. Absolutely critical to know, um, before you get started. What else can I tell you? There's an event coming up on Saturday that we're really super stoked about. We will be diving deep into passive investing, active investing. We will be diving deep with a lawyer on both sides of the border. We're going to have a mortgage agent there that's getting mortgage financing on both sides of the border, so Canada, US. And I believe they're going to be launching Mexico as well. So it's international. And then we're also going to have a tax accountant who's got some experience in the US as well, enough that he could also guide you too. So I want to invite you definitely for that. That event is on November 16th, 2024. So depending on when you're listening to this this recording, it's going to matter if the event's passed. I believe that we're going to be offering the replays to anyone. So if anyone is interested in that, there will be a charge for that. However, we will have those replays available, because again, we want to deliver to this community. We want to not only make it where I'm doing the talking as an investor, however, and a real estate coach, is also putting you in a position where you can now hear it from experts, that you can, here's a real live person with real live facts, who's licensed and able to actually tell you these things and ask you these questions. So we've also put together a list of questions, because we plan on fire hosing these guys, when they show up on Saturday. And we're super excited. We're super excited about this community that we're forming, that any of the members and anybody that that wants to be part of this group, please, I believe that there's a way that we can send them a link, that there's a add button or a join button or some kind of way. And for right now, membership is free. It will not be free forever, I guarantee you. There is a lot of work that goes into this. There's a lot of knowledge I'm pouring out to you in 30 minutes or less, twice a week right now, that have taken me over 35 years of experience. So what you're getting right now for free, take advantage of it while it's free, and then jump on board. Like, we're going to be having events. Yes, the events are going to cost money. I'm not denying that. I can tell you is that, number one, they're a write-off. Check with your accountant. The other thing is that you're never going to be able to get in a room with this many professionals for free, asking them these questions. It's not going to happen, and it certainly won't happen for the fraction of the cost that we're going to be offering it to you. So, YG, did you have anything that you wanted to add to that? And thanks, everyone.
No, that covered everything I was thinking about, and sounds good.
Okay, we will see you guys again. Everyone, again, thank you for your time. Happy real estate investing. And we're here for you. We really want to launch out this community. We want to serve you to the highest level. You have not heard from YG yet, but I'm going to tell you, he is packing out some exciting stuff that he's going to be delivering. You're going to be absolutely blown away as we roll out this community. So have yourselves a great day. Bye now.